This video is for Father's Day, and I'm up in Big Bear, California. Didn't plan to be here for Father's Day, but I came up here to help my sister Sarah with her yard for the weekend, and I'll be heading back down to the valley to have dinner with my wife Christina for Father's Day. I'm looking forward to that. She tells me she's preparing a really good meal, which I know she is because she's a great cook. This is big. I'm sitting, it's called Fallen Warriors of Big Bear Valley Memorial. It's a beautiful memorial. It's a beautiful park. It sits right by the lake. And my sister Sarah is in church right now, right next door. So honestly, I like this sanctuary better than the one that people sit in. This is an amazing place to sit and just think about life and God and important things. So this is a stream of consciousness video. There's no preparation, but I'm just going to share a few thoughts first of all, for my sons on Father's Day, and then for those of you that are out there that have raised your children and you're now grandfathers, or you are raising your children. So I heard someone make a statement once that a man's monuments are his children. And I thought of, when I heard that, I go, okay, what does that mean? And I thought about it, and then I began to reflect and realize that what he was saying was, you can have statues built in your honor. I would say even monuments like this that I met for men who gave their lives for our country, men and women. And they do speak about you. They speak about what you've done. But your children really are your living monuments. They really do reflect, or can reflect, your life decisions and your actions, and maybe who you were and maybe who you were not. The statement doesn't always hold true in a positive way. I do believe that there are many fathers who did not raise their children well. I was one of those. My father was not a good man, and he was not present in my life in any positive way ever. In spite of that, all of his children, for different reasons, we grew up and became responsible, productive, and I would say good human beings. None of us are perfect, obviously, but we don't reflect a lot our father. We're more a reflection of our mother, and maybe I would say that we are her monuments. But I say that to begin by telling everyone who's a father out there to remember that your children will speak about you after you are gone, and they will either speak of you in a positive light or they will speak of you with regret. Someone else said, I think it was Michael Savage, said, when your children succeed, don't take too much credit and don't get too proud. Don't take too much of the credit. He said, and when they fail, don't take too much of the blame. They are adults after all. And I think he was talking more in that sense, adult children and how they end up doing in life. Because he understood that he was very flawed. If you ever get a chance to really listen to or read about the life of Michael Savage, you learn that he was and he talks about his flaws, his brokenness, but I think he had a really healthy view of how to respond to our children's successes and their failures. And it's almost like just step back and watch and observe, and maybe more than anything, be there for them, whether they succeed or fail. Now, I'm just going to say 4 things, and I've written about this and talked about it before, but every Father's Day it comes back to me about how important it is for a father to lead his children. And I will say this, it's like leading your children is pretty much like leading yourself when you are trying to accomplish something significant, such as if you're an athlete or you're going to college or you're pursuing a career. You have to lead yourself in order to do that. And so leading children that's the type of pressure or stress, you could call it, that is laid upon a man when he has a child, when his wife bears him a child. There's a certain weight that's put upon him, and that weight is very significant. It can be romantic to create a child. It's never romantic to raise them. I think this is one of the mistakes that young people make, and just that individuals make. We romanticize being parents. And forget that it's a very challenging task. So, how do you lead your children? Well, first, you have to decide, and I know this is going to sound crazy, and people think, well, don't parents just naturally love their children? No, they don't. My own experience tells me that they don't. And my observation of just parents, I've worked with young people all my life. I've worked with children and young people all of my life, and I have found that there are many, many parents whose priority is not to genuinely, or I'm going to say it like this, to love their children well. They have emotional bond to them. So, if they die or if something horrible happens to their children, they're emotionally impacted and they cry and they grieve and all, but you know, on a day-to-day basis, there are many parents who do not love their children well. And here's what I mean. One, they don't make their children the priority. And by that I mean, wherever you invest your time, that's your priority. And I get it that people have to work, parents have to, provide and all of that. But I find that it's so easy to get lost in putting my time into things that I think my children need and want. But I learned really quickly that, and maybe just because I thought about what did I want the most from my parents, and especially my father, I wanted him to be present in my life. And my father was not present in my life. And so he told me by his absence that he did not love me. And that's a hard one. And so I made the decision that I would be very present in my children's lives, not only as we were raising them, but now that they're adults. And I'm not talking about being a helicopter parent, because I don't think anyone can accuse Christina or myself of being those type of parents. I think there were times when we were maybe a little bit more involved in their life than they may have wanted us to be. But I think in general they would tell you that we were present in a balanced way in their life. And if I'm wrong, they can go online and correct me. I'm okay with that. But I think that's what love really moves us to do. When you love someone, your priority is to be present with them. And that's a whole chapter, so I won't get into it real deep, but that's the bottom line. If you love well, the priority will be to be present in the life of your children when it matters, and it matters all the time. Okay. The second thing that I learned as a father was, and that I practiced, was educating / equipping my children. By the time our children were born, I was certain of one thing, that no one was going to have more influence in the life of my child than their mother and I. And what I mean by that is that we were going to be their first educators. And so I loved it when my children asked me questions, because I always saw that as an opportunity to, one, have conversation with them, and two, to begin to teach them how to think. And that's really what educating or empowering your child is. It is teaching them how to think well or clearly. And one of the ways you do that is by critiquing your own thinking, criticizing your own, like learning from your own foolish thinking, from foolish decisions, and admitting to them, hey, you know what, this was wrong, what I said here was wrong. It takes a parent a lot to sit and think of, okay, what I did, what I just did, was that good or bad? Was it helpful or was it not helpful? But more than anything, I knew that it was my job to raise my sons to be men who could think for themselves and not be part of the mass of humanity who just go with the flow. And if you've ever met my children, you know that all of them, all four of our sons, and this is interesting too, because I think that they chose wives who are pretty good thinkers. They think for themselves, and when they when they disagree with their husbands, they let them know. Just like my wife, she does that too still. But anyway, if you really want to empower your child, don't just tell him or her what to think. Teach them how to think. And that means that sometimes they're going to point out the flaws in your thinking. And it happens more as you get older and as they become adults. You begin to see, wow, I am having an this always happens when I'm interacting with my sons, where in conversation I realize, oh my gosh, I'm having a conversation with very intellectual people. These all four of my sons have an incredible ability to speak clearly about what they are thinking, and to think clearly about what they're thinking, which is, I think it's called metacognition. But the third thing is, if you're going to really, really be a father that your children are going to speak well of later on in life, and especially when you're gone, you need to be a father who arouses their inner being. And I want to say this, that's probably the most significant thing you'll do, because whatever's going on the inside of a child's being is reflected in their thoughts, their words, their deeds, their emotions, and ultimately it really does determine whether they will grow to be genuinely joyful and productive and positive people, or whether they're going to struggle all their life trying to figure out what the hell is going on. What am I supposed to do, and why am I doing this? And I will tell you this, that a big part of my life, a significant part of my life, I have spent asking questions like that, because my father did not help me develop. He was not the catalyst who helped me develop my inner man. It was other people. It was a religious organization that I grew up in that was very flawed. I'm not saying it was bad, but it was very flawed, and by men who I thought genuinely had a genuine interest in my well-being and my success, and for the most part did not. They were more interested in using me to meet their end game, their end goals, which at some level I understand that. But a father, that's never what a father does, or he should strive not to do that. So I made it a point as a father to teach my children that they need a relationship with their creator, with God. And I think most men are freaking scared of that. By the way, this is a rated PG video, maybe R at some point, but if you can't handle that, you could leave now. I'm not offended. I'm not here to offend you, by the way. But I really wanted my children to understand that the most important thing in their life would be how they relate to their creator. to God, what they think of Him, what they know about Him, how they relate to Him. And I will say that that's a journey of highs and lows. It's a journey of mountaintops and valleys. I think the psalmist called it at one point the valley of the shadow of death. And I don't think that journey and that journey is ever, you don't reach its end here on this earth. I'm going through my own journey where I am struggling with my relationship with my Creator. And I have questions that I don't have answers to, that I know I might understand them in eternity, and maybe they'll be so insignificant there that they'll be washed away. I don't know. I'm not that wise. But children are also born with gifts, and I knew that I had gifts, and I did my best to develop those and use them, and I made sure that my children, that's why all my children are musicians. I'm a musician. I love singing. I play the piano. I play a little bit of percussion. And I've always loved music. So I just had the sense that my children would be musically inclined, and all four of them are. And so we invested in that gift, and it's paying them back incredible dividends. Avenida Music is a music company that they started, that is just in its infancy, but is having incredible success. And I'm really proud of our boys for what they're doing. They're taking incredible, well-educated or well-thought-out risk, and it's paying off. They're not gambling. They're taking just very well-thought-out challenges, and they're succeeding, pushing through the challenges of being entrepreneurs and the ups and downs of all that, and how it affects their relationship with each other, and how it affects them economically and in every way. But I'm just excited to see what they're doing. And so if you, as a father, that's your job. You have to address the spiritual needs of your children, the emotional needs of your children, and their gifting, like help them really discover what they're good at, and then help them invest in that. And finally, leading is directing. It's giving instruction. It's pointing the way. It's saying, look, I've been down this path. I know where the pitfalls are. I know where when I was in high school, I ran cross country out at Coachella Valley High School, and we had our course out at Lake Cahuilla. We used to practice out there. We'd train out there every day. I knew the 3-mile course like the back of my hand. There was a mile of it that was sand, the back mile. They've cut most of that out now. But when I ran, it was a very challenging course. I knew where all the hard spots in that sand mile were. So when I would race, I would look for and set my foot on all the spots where I knew the ground was hard. And when I trained, I wouldn't step in those areas. I would run right down the middle where all the sand was, but all your harder spots were towards the edges of the trail. So I just knew where to race. And that was a huge advantage to me and to us as a team, to know the course. Well, a father A father should know the course. You should study life. You should pay attention to yourself and your successes and your failures, and share the knowledge with your children. I think there's another thing too, especially now. Our world is confusing children. It's I find it very hard to grasp this reality. But educated people, intelligent people, doctors and scientists and educators and people who work with children they are lying to them. They're taking them down paths that they have never been, or that they've been and have found to be dead ends. I'm just going to say this. I never worried about my children and what someone in the world would tell them. I never worried that they would be led astray, because I knew that I had taught them the path they should walk on. A good path. A hard path. A challenging path. An unpopular path. But the right path. And they have proved it. There are times when you have to tell your child that's not the path to follow. Now, you can't force them not to go down that path, but you better speak when you need to speak. Don't be afraid to speak the truth. Don't be afraid to speak it in love. And don't be afraid to speak it firmly. And then you say, if you choose to go down that path, I'll be here when you choose to make the U-turn and come back. I'll be here for you. I still love you. But you have to do that as a parent. So, the last thing I'm going to say, this message is primarily, it's for my sons. I am the most blessed man in the world. I consider myself that. I know there are other men who also feel that way, and it's true of them too. And here's what I mean. I'll give you an example. I want to insert this. I didn't plan to, but I'm going to. My friend Peter Alvarez is the most blessed man in the world. He has a beautiful family. His children honor him all the time. He has a wife who loves him. And he had a very difficult childhood and upbringing. But I think he learned to lead his children, and it shows. I'm happy for him. Very happy for him. My children, Josiah, Vincent, Sammy, and Dennis, my 4 sons have just honored me all their life. And they know that I'm very flawed. They know that I've also worked really hard at overcoming my failures and my shortcomings, my sins, my brokenness. So I just want to wish Josiah and Vincent happy Father's Day. I have beautiful granddaughters, Ariel and Gigi and Genesis. But you gentlemen are working very hard at being good fathers, and never forget that that's the most important task you have to accomplish in this lifetime. Vincent and Josiah are great fathers. I'm grateful for Sammy and Dennis. They don't have children yet, but if God will give you children one day, I hope He does. This message is for you too. Thank you for honoring me. I am the most blessed man on the planet. And I look forward to having dinner with all my family. We get together every month, all my children and my grandchildren. We all get together at my house. And we share a meal together. And we play games together. And we laugh. And we just hang out. It's just as I envisioned it. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Have a blessed day.